Orca Slicer 2.0 is finally here with some huge changes, including the long-awaited scarf seams and more. Let's talk about it. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and welcome to Orca Slicer 2.0. Now, at the time of filming, it's currently in release candidate, which means, theoretically, by the time this video goes live, maybe it'll be ready. We are going to link to Orca Slicer down below if you do want to get this 2.0 revision. And I will tell you, scarf seams are super cool, and it changes the way that I will look at slicing on Orca. But there's so much more to it than just scarf seams. But that's the big one. Let's dive right into that. So the idea of a scarf joint is to effectively do a overlapping joint that will hide the seam, similar to what we see with vase mode, where the Z is always kind of constantly going up as the printer prints. This is how scarf seams work. And while it can take some time to actually get things dialed in, after only our second test print, I am incredibly pleased with how well you can hide the seams now in Orca Slicer, which was always one of my biggest gripes with that software. We don't see seams like this in Prusa Slicer, but because the plate features and a few other things, we chose Orca for our input shaping based machines that are not Prusa related. And well, scarf seams kind of solve every one of these issues. We can see that it adjusts the flow, and you can choose multiple options for scarf seams. And in fact, you guys can take a look. This is the exact test print that we ran. Those are the two test prints that we did. We did them on our BAMBU Lab X1 Carbon, and we even used our fancy new Ember Prototypes plate, and it even puts our logo on the bottom of parts, which is just super freaking cool. I love that. We did end up using Printed Solids Pure Magenta because I wanted something that you cannot hide crap with crazy colors like a magenta. It's a very, very easy thing to add in. You can see that we've been doing some specifically custom things, and I wrote on the top of it, utilizing the negative volume of what actually is on it, so of course I can remember. So we tried every kind of basic option when it comes to scarf joints, including none, contour, contour and hole, as well as the conditional scarf joints. And we found that, yeah, it goes from something that is just kind of ugly and one of my big gripes about using Orca Slicer to something that is now, yeah, there are still some trade-offs that we have to make in terms of losing some of our print speed, but the quality that we gain for that seam and it effectively disappearing is well worth that added time. See, speed is not always your friend here. Sometimes speed can be the enemy. We will have these profiles available to all of our channel member supporters. So if you guys do want to get this, couple of bucks a month gets you access to gain all this. And if you are in our Discord, you've actually had this 3MF file for a couple of days, you're welcome. But this part that we did here was actually designed directly off of the one that we see here in this GIF, because it really does exemplify and show off the scarf joints and how they work on both a sharp cornered object and a smooth object where you do need to change layers. And yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm very excited for it. If you guys do want to see a deeper dive on it, please let me know in those comments below, because it's definitely something that I would like to talk about more. But of course, Teaching Tech did get that video out before we were ever even able to start our filming of ours. So if you do want to see one, let me know. We'll make sure that we get one out as well. We also have small area flow compensation, which was added to help deal with the over extrusion that you get in small flow areas. And while the issue is not really all that well understood, to me, it was always to do with back pressure and dealing with that initial heating of the filament for flow rate. And it's why on big Bowden printers, we actually use a ramp speed. We can see that what they are doing is that they are adjusting the flow inversely proportional to the length of the extrusion line, and you ensure then that the shorter lines receive less flow. This to me looks great. We've always used ramping speed and ramping extruding speed to deal with this. I love the idea of going to actually changing your flow rate on the fly. And we can see how it looks on a part right here, which is super cool to see. And yes, again, that's going to add extra time to your parts. But if that means there's less post-processing and getting parts that need to press fit or need to mate up against each other on flat surfaces require considerably less effort from you, I would say that's a huge win for the user at that point. And I'd be curious to what you guys think actually causes this. To me, it's all about the flowing of the plastic and the back pressure that it takes to initially get that heat starting to flow. Orca has also added a awesome thing that Prusa has had for a while. I'm glad to finally see it here. It is now supporting OTA, over-the-air, profile updates for all 3D printers, which is great. So if you are a manufacturer that has your 3D printer inside of Orca, you can push over-the-air updates and users can just download those new updates, which is absolutely beautiful. We love to see that because it means the users don't have to continually adjust their profiles. And when manufacturers release new printers, it is very easy to just get them immediately added in. You get an update and you can choose to add it in. Very, very simple. And as you get better at making profiles, those profiles can then be pushed to your user base. And for brand new printers, like we have the Cheedy Q1 Pro, which we unboxed recently. Card to that stream so you guys can take a look. We are aware of the current safety issue regarding the heater. It was not something that we tested because we just don't believe we should have to do safety testing for manufacturers, but here we are. I will say I have kind of avoided that area of the machine. Has been printing pretty well. Not as clean as some of our other printers, but we're still working on the profile for that. It's not a profile that exists in Orca Slicer, at least not in the beta version that I'm using right now. So we had to build our own profile. If Cheedy wanted to push that, they very easily could. And if they wanted to continually update the profile, they can now easily do it via over-the-air updates. Very happy to see that. We can also see a better navigator for moving around inside of the 3D space. I will say this is nice. For me, it's never been something that I've particularly used. I just use my mouse. But if you're looking for something that has more quality of life features, yeah, this you can just snap and it will give you those exact areas of which you're looking at, which is awesome. Love to see it. I think the only gripe that I have is I would like to see, instead of colors, I'd like to see it actually say, you know, front, back, left, right kind of thing, and not adjust the way that the font is reading so that if you're on the back side of the model, front reads backwards to you. They've also now added direct adaptive bed mesh support, which is super, super awesome. If you have printers that can add in bed meshes, you don't have to do some random G-code trickery. It can now all be commanded by variables, which is beautiful. We love to see that. Thank you for adding that. And as someone that is still slowly learning the Clipper world, and if you want to watch me struggle and screw it up and then have to fix it, struggle some more, you can watch my stream all about pushing the Magneto X to its limits. Card to that video so you guys can take a look. It's a long stream. We are able to push the Magneto X to absolutely insane speeds, considering that the actual XY axis that moves on that printer weighs over a kilo. That's something you have to consider. Yeah, it's not the fastest printer on the planet, but it is really heavy and it's moving very fast. But I love that Orca is now introducing this because it means that there's less BS that you need to do to make your adaptive bed meshes just work inside of your prints without having to probe your bed every freaking time. Probing beds, even with something like Camp, which is the Clipper adaptive mesh probing, can still take time. And if you don't code it in properly to, at least with Clipper, pull the macro and run it, you're gonna end up not having the right bed mesh. Now you can do it right from Orca. Thank you guys for doing that. Absolutely beautiful to see. And they've even provided example bed mesh codes for Marlin, Clipper, and RepRap. So no matter what of the three main firmwares you might be running on your machine, there's pretty much something already here for you to start with. Gotta love it. You can now also adjust the order of objects by layer by dragging them in the object list. Choosing the as object list option for the layer order dropdown will ensure objects are printed in your specified order for each layer. This can be a big deal if you're doing multicolored stuff. Now, the software should be able to determine to run everything in one color before it switches. And so I'm not exactly certain where this would be 100% useful. Clearly, somebody really wanted this. And I guess if you are going to be doing multiple objects in a bed like this, there is some value to be moving them around. Because as you're doing this one, you can pull this one off the bed if you feel like, you know, risking things a little bit. And as we can see, it does appear that it is done to minimize tool changes. And for those of you with Tool Changer 3 printers, this can be a big deal. And looking at you, Zombie Hedgehog, he's doing one of those tap changers. I think that is super cool. Putting a tool changer on a Voron. We absolutely want to do that. Soon TM, because I'm still learning Clipper. I still haven't finished my Voron build. And if you do want to watch me kind of struggle to build that Voron, because it has been it's been a fun challenge to say the least. We'll card to that playlist so you guys can watch it. We're going to be streaming every single week now to get that Voron finished before Rocky Mountain Rep Rap Fest. Come hell or high water, that thing's going to run before Rocky Mountain. I'm excited to make that happen. We can also see something that I really enjoyed in Orca Slicer, and I'm glad this is coming over into Orca, which is the revisit and improve the ensure vertical shell thickness strategy and the UX, the user experience. That will just make sure that your walls are the right thickness. You can basically choose whether you want it critical, none, or everywhere. And it will only add thickness to where it is absolutely critical, and it won't add it to areas where your wall thickness will actually matter. We've also added in some new torture test models because, yeah, I still think this is like an unrealistic test model, personally. I'd love to know your guys' thoughts in the comments below, because these string hell style models, which is styled directly after the Autodesk test model, they're just unrealistic for what printers are expected to do. And while it is great, a slightly damp filament will give you tons of stringing and won't indicate anything else for being damp. And you could go down this road of trying to deal with retraction and it's damp filament, or the other way around. Your retraction's not perfect. You think it's damp filament and it's not. And you keep going down that path. It's nice if you really do want to chase zeros, but I don't know if it's 100% necessary when butane and propane torches are so cheap, they just burn all the hairs off anyways, and it goes away. But I totally understand if you're someone that wants to do crazy high detail HueForge parts. We should interview Steve and the guys from HueForge. Let me know if you guys want to see them on an upcoming podcast. That sounds like fun. We should do that. In case like that, we're running like a 0.2 millimeter nozzle. This would be valuable. But for the vast majority of people, this might be a little bit overzealous. Something that's nice to see is the pressure equalizer that's been added to be less aggressive. When your machine would slow down, then it would need to speed up and slow down and speed up, you would get too many changes and it would attempt to adjust for that very aggressively. This is a much cleaner ramp, which I think is, well, better overall for printing. We've got options to control the amount of internal bridging, which is not something that I ever thought that I needed, but I've absolutely experienced the left side part problem before, and it's great to see that now you're given even more control. I've always said that Super Slicer is Orca Slicer for control freaks. It seems like we're getting some of that control freak level inside of Orca, which, as someone that does like to really push the zeros when possible just for fun, this is great. And then we find how we can implement it into our strategy for our business so that we're having a trade-off between quality, speed, efficiency, and price. If we made dead perfect parts all the time, we would probably be printing with PolyJet or something like that, and our prices would be 10x what they are now. But we also don't want to sit here and just run as fast as humanly possible and give people crappy parts. It's nice to see that you can get really smooth bridging across with proper internal bridging for those slope surfaces. Great to see. I also love open source, and we've talked about this before. You guys know how we love open source here, and if you love open source, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe if you haven't, helps the channel grow, and hey, it costs you nothing. And if you do want to support us financially, you can do so, links down below, and at the $10 tier now you get to come hang out in our private Discord server where we will be reviewing this video the day before it goes live. We'll be hanging out during the premiere of this video, and well, we kind of get together pretty much every night to hang out and help each other out and see what's going on. But open source has enabled Orca to get things like the edit G-code dialog directly from Orca Slicer, so it's simple to edit G-code, because doing it inside of Notepad is for cavemen. Sorry, Guy Code dude, but this is great to see. I love this feature inside of Orca Slicer, and we've actually on more than one occasion brought G-code out of a different program into Orca Slicer to edit the G code to then export it back out again, because it is so much easier in there. It is great to see this being brought into Orca Slicer. This is the power of open source. And once again, I wish Orca Slicer brought this in. Good on you, Orca Slicer, for doing this. The counter bore hole bridging, so that you don't have to deal with either custom designing in your lines to take a circle and not have it be a problem. What it basically does is, for a counter bored hole, it will just do one layer solid. And all you gotta do is just poke right through. You can see it here in the GIF how it works. It is crazy valuable. And yes, I know with this part, you could print it upside down and you wouldn't need that. That's not the point. There are times where you could use that. But if that's not something that you want to utilize, there are add-ons for Fusion. We'll actually link to one that we use if you want to just design it into your parts, where it's basically just two overlapping rectangles that hit the edges of your circle, and it can pretty much figure it out. This is nice to see that it's done on the slicer side, so you don't have to remember to do it on the printer side. And all you really end up having to do is just poke through that, which can be easily done with a screwdriver, the screw that you're using, a heat set insert tool of some sort. It's very, very simple to get rid of that. Love to see it, because again, this makes designing for 3D printing easier. You don't have to think about this stuff anymore. And it's great to see it being pulled into more modern softwares. I'm sorry, Orca Slicer, I love you. We checked you guys out at least a year ago. We'll card to it as well. It's a great software, but it hasn't been getting the kind of updates that Orca has. Now, I'm told that Orca Slicer is back in development pretty much 80% of where they used to be when they were doing it full time, and that is great to see. It's good to have more open source competition, because it means that we as the consumers win. That's what I love about open source. I hope you guys like it too. We can see various other bug fixes, lots of profiles added, translations, miscellaneous stuff added in. And of course, we now have the release candidate as well, where they've rewritten honeycomb infill, specifically the 3D honeycomb infill, to act more like gyroid, but gyroid if you put it under a compressor. And I know that's not how they describe it, but you're taking the sine wave gyroid and you're just squishing it. And I know that you guys love gyroid. I love gyroid. It's a great infill that is just anisotropically strong, but it's very slow because it requires lots of directional changes. 3D honeycomb no longer has a lot of the BS. It should basically be a faster version of gyroid. We are still huge proponents of adaptive cubic here at 3D Musketeers. I'd love to know what your favorite infill is down below, because there are some really interesting infill patterns that are starting to come out. Maybe it's time that we do an infill showdown and we look at testing what infills are the strongest, and we do it in a unique Florida man way. Let me know if you guys want to see that kind of thing happen, because I think that'd be fun. And we can see here with a Prusa Mark IV, printing infill at 200 millimeters a second, and it looks clean. That is great. And PETG is a hard material to print fast. It's also tweaked the homepage, UI, UX stuff all around, and some fixes from the beta as well. The beta just normally has a lot of the features. The release candidate is just fixing some of the stuff that they found within the beta. I am so glad to see this new version 2.0 of Orca. Obviously, the scarf joints and scarf seams are something that I really like. Hiding something that has always been a bit of a scar on the 3D print is something that we absolutely love to see here. And after only 2 test prints, we are at like 90%. Like to the point of where I had to mark specifically where we put those seams so I could actually find them. That's the great thing about this, man. I love these scarf seams. We will likely be converting over to it on all of our printers that run Orca, because it will bring them up to the seam quality that we can get within Orca Slicer. So now to see that they're working on getting rid of that with this new thing called scarf joint seams, absolutely love to see that. It is my favorite new feature within Orca 2.0. And if you guys do want to see a dedicated video on it, I am happy to do one, because this is super cool. And of course, you gotta love that Ember prototypes plate. And dude, they're so affordable. Like if you are a content creator or you want to sell your parts at fairs, markets, whatever, having your products be branded without having to do any extra work is super freaking cool. It was something that I never thought was possible. Then the Ember Prototypes people reached out to us, and lo and behold, it is super freaking cool. So I do want to thank them. They sent over that plate for no cost. We're going to likely get plates for the bulk of our printers that we use here in the farm, because it is really cool to see it from the bottom side, and it makes it look super cool in time lapses. I think you guys will agree there. But I'd love to know what your favorite feature of Orca Slicer 2.0 is, and if there's any of the other features in here that you would like to see dedicated videos on, because we want to do more deep dives. I just, want to do things that you guys are going to enjoy as well. I love diving deep into why these settings are interesting and why they matter, and how we can actually make them look better, work better, be more efficient, and help you continue printing with purpose. Just like I want to purposefully thank all the people that are right next to me at the $5 tier and higher, because, well, they support the channel and we thank them from the bottom of our hearts for it. Again, if you do want to support us, links are in that description, and you can support for as little as $1 a month, but hey, $10 or higher gets you to come hang out with us in our private Discord server. Right below me will be my last look at Orca Slicer, where things were very different then. This is a whole new slicer. Right next to that will be a random video that I think you all will enjoy as well. That's all I have for you all today. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. Don't forget to leave a like and get subscribed. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one.